At first light, the grass of Iklwa Zulu cuts like wire. Mist lifts off the Mlathuze as a young commander lowers a shortened spear, the Iklwa, into his palm. Shaka Zanga Kona has learned that if you want a battle to end, you must close the distance where breath still fogs an enemy's chest. Around him, Amabutho stand with cowhide shields pressed to ribs. It looks like prayer. It's a decision. We remember Thunder the Impi at a run, the horns of the buffalo closing, dust folding the Sunday. But thunder is only noise after heat meets cold. The true change is simpler. Distances shortened, timing disciplined, fear spent with intention. This is not just a weapon story. It's a system story, how a scattered people learned to move like one mind, and how that rhythm could not be contained by the hills that birthed it. Listen closely and you hear what came before. Dingiswayo's mentorship, Makabai Kajama's cold arithmetic at the homestead, Zwaid Kalanga's shadow-testing borders, Nandi's breath dignity carried through humiliation. The hills pass praise poems one way and rumors the other. Both are true the way weather is true. What matters is the march. The reforms begin as small heresies. Spears shortened for closeness. Shields widened for leverage. Regiments organized by age and season, not only kin. Endurance treated as a tactic. Then the formation that makes maps tremble. Izimpondo Zankumo. The horns of the buffalo chest to fix. Horns to envelop, loins to finish. Simple to draw in dust, terrible when timed. Reform is never abstract. A closer spear means a closer wound. Discipline takes away the luxury of hesitation. Villages wake to absence, songs stretch to cover names that won't return. Victory brings taxes, two more mouths, wider perimeters, new enemies created by surviving the old ones. Empire isn't a destination. It's a maintenance schedule written in blood and grain. Why tell this now, to ears in Johannesburg and London, Durban and Detroit? Because somewhere in your story, there is also a decision about distance, how close you will stand to what you want, how tightly you'll hold the line when the line is you. Shaka's genius wasn't cruelty. Cruelty is cheap. His genius was compression of space, of time, of fear, until a people could cross the field between who they were and what they could demand of history. The sun climbs, the dew burns off. Across the Mlathus, a scatter becomes an army becomes a shape. The chest steadies, the horns begin to fold. Between breath and blade, a nation steps forward. Between the Indian Ocean and the Drakensberg run belts of land that teach economy and caution, salt-sweet coast, thorny midlands, wind-cut uplands, rivers like the Mlathus change height in a night. Grazing follows water, villages follow grazing. When rains are late, tempers shorten, and the price of a heifer can weld or sever a future. Cattle here are a ledger lobola for marriage, fines for peace, proof of standing. A raid is never merely theft. It's an entry in the book of debts and promises. Young men move through age cohorts that predate any king raw material that can become Amabutho if someone gives them a name that outlasts a season. Power gathers around two magnets. South, the Mnathwa under Dingiswayo soft hands first, hard hands ready. North, the Nodwanwi under Zwaid Kalanga boundaries tested with iron. Smaller polities keep doors open to both winds, sending marriage cattle one way, tribute the other. This isn't chaos. It's the logic of a crowded landscape. Far northeast, ships at Delagoa Bay today, Maputo, open a throat between hills and sea. Ivory and hides go out, beads, cloth, alcohol, and a few unreliable muskets come in. The trade itself changes tempo. Credit arrives with beads, and credit has due dates. Men hunt farther. Caravans walk new paths. Strength once measured in cattle now calculates with brass rings, mirrors, and the rumor of gunpowder. Climate swings wider. Some years wetlands hold. In others, reed beds shrink to mud. Old grievances sharpen when calves die in dust. Families lift homesteads and carry loyalties to new valleys. Call the wider turmoil Mfekane divided by Difakane if you must, but don't mistake a single cause for a chorus. Environmental pressure, markets, and politics knot together. Colonial actors profit when neighbors quarrel. Warfare before the change favors distance, light feet over broken ground. Long spears traded for position and pride. Leaders read slope and stream like scripture. Hills like Gqokli aren't chosen for romance but for what they make an enemy do. Stretch, climb, breathe too fast. By winter 1818, all forces point to such a hill over the Mlathus. Gqokli isn't yet legend. It's where weather, hunger, credit, and ambition narrow to a footpath. What happens there will look like a battle. It's also a verdict written by the landscape. Shaka Zulu learned early to tighten life to what he could control: stance, breath, the distance at which he chose to close. Nandi taught him that dignity must be arranged. Makabayi Kajama taught survival's arithmetic. Count loyalties, spend them carefully. Under Dingiswayo, he learned to separate anger from discipline, to watch how a command stiffens a line or dissolves it, how a hill can become a shield, and how hesitation at the wrong range turns courage into waste. He took what was scattered and made it specific. Age cohorts became named Amabutho with songs, marks, and obligations. He drilled cadence into feet until running became an instrument. He stripped loads until movement felt like memory, not labor. He spoke of spacing as if it were law 1 arm's length when absorbing shock, half an arm when winning, and made men practice until the measure lived in them. Weapons, to him, were instructions. He shortened the spear, so decision happened up close. He widened the shield to take space, not merely hide behind it, and taught the press that steals a man's balance. He studied enemies like weather, and he chose ground that sped his decisions while slowing another man's. He distrusted heroics that can't be taught. He praised leaders who made 10 men predictable over champions who made one charge memorable. He believed in 3 levers: discipline to prevent leakage, speed to impose a schedule, and terrain to turn steps into advantage or regret. By winter 1818, he had arranged himself so thoroughly that when Gqokli arrived, the moment couldn't scatter him. The Iklwa sits in the hand like a metronome: close, press, finish. Shortening the blade relocated choice from the air to the 1-2 meters where a shield can speak and a man can't lie. The cowhide shield widens to become leverage, tilt an opponent's balance, a thumb's width, and the thrust becomes inevitable. Around the blade, Shaka built cadence. Boys who once mustered irregularly were woven into named Amabutho identity that survives season and fear. A name schedules time. A song stores memory. Loads were stripped to what a man could still run with after he'd already run. Speed ceased to mean hurry. It meant reliability being where your plan expects you to be, exactly when it expects you. Spacing became scripture: 1 arm's length to absorb shock, half an arm to close, a shield's width to deny a flank. The front rank learned the push that fixes an enemy's rear foot. The second rank learned the half step that turns that planted foot into a trap. Random heroics were corrected. A system that tolerates them teaches defeat the moment luck runs out. Signals were simplified: a whistle to hold, a whistle to fold, a whistle to pour chest to fix, horns to envelop, loins to rise once. You can draw the horns of the buffalo in dust. Timing gives it teeth. He taught men to wait without eroding, to trust the silence of a hidden wing. Scouts widened sightlines, reading reeds, mud, and shadow, treating information like supply. A late report is a spoiled ration. Quartermasters guarded tempo. Water discipline, foot discipline, routes rehearsed. Without logistics, speed is theater and collapse is the encore. Discipline moved inward. Punishment existed, but repetition forged reflexes that respected one another. A shield line that inhales together moves with fewer gaps. He chose doctrines repeatable on bad ground over flourishes that require perfect days. Terrain stayed a partner. Hills still governed breath, rivers still taxed legs, grass still hid truth. What changed was alignment. Blade fits shield, spacing fits blade, formation fits spacing, scouting fits formation, logistics fits scouting, discipline fits them all. By the time the path climbs toward Gqokli, nothing he asks is miraculous. Its parts arrange so tightly that chance must work harder to break them. Winter lays a bright hardness on Gqokli, a sensible rise cradled by 2 arms of the Mlathus. Shaka walks the crest before sunrise, heel testing ground like a blade tests fruit. Here, slope taxes long throws. Here, wind steals feathered tails. Here, distance becomes debt. Amabutho take positions as if summoned by a clock. The chest anchors just below the skyline, never silhouetted. The reserve's loins settle behind the crest, breathing. Horns lie in grass near the river bends, leaders told to treat quiet as proof, not absence. Scouts have thumbed the reed beds. Water is cached where memory won't fail. Nothing depends on luck. Below, that Nudwandwe under's wide Kalanga appear formidable on easier ground, dangerous even here. They are not careless. But numbers are an argument, and they make it. Files widen, skirmishers feel the slope, long spears rise to sing uphill. The first throws slap shields or spend themselves in grass. The Amabutho wait until range tightens. A whistle cuts the air. Shields press. The Iklwa does its plain, unsentimental work. Up close, breath becomes a tool. A man is a door you open by denying him a backward step. Ndwandwe are not paper. They pull back, reorder, come again. Shaka answers with rotation. The chest is a mill, not a monument. Fresh companies step in, tired step out. The wall breathes. By mid-morning, the hill has collected a second landscape, spent shafts, trampled shine. The tax of climbing mounts. Shaka waits for the tiny error large armies make when they think time is theirs. A push too deep on the left, an eagerness to roll the chest before the horns show, a sliver of men stepping into reeds to drink. The second whistle folds, the third pours. From the grass, the left horn lifts and removes a road. Later, the right horn appears where reinforcements should have been. The center tightens. Ndwandwe weight carries them into a place where running forward is mercy and turning is impossible. He listens to ground. The chest holds without eating itself. The left has its knee on escape. The right grips the ridge that offered a last honest pivot. Then the loins rise, fresh legs, quiet eyes moving without noise, then striking the seam where plan meets will. The sound is brief and ugly. Work at the right distance. Some try for the river. Few reach water. A crossing under pressure is confession, not escape. The horns don't hurry. They narrow. In the center, a boy remembers the rule with his whole body. Stay close enough that your enemy can't resurrect himself as a thrower. He does. The blade answers questions bravery alone cannot. The whistle drags desire into silence. Units count themselves and find almost what they carried up. The chest settles where it started. Horns don't chase shadows. Reserve returns to shade. Discipline keeps what killing would waste. By afternoon, the Ndwandwe line is posture, not plan. They gather what dignity they can and step away. The field smells of iron and grass. Amabutho lower shields, arms heavy, and kneel to press foreheads to earth, not worship, just thanks for a surface that behaved as taught. No miracle occurred. A plan held. A hill cooperated. A smaller nation kept its nerve. The light softens. Hands that held death all morning feel empty and heavy. Amabutho answer by name, not noise present. Present then silence for those who didn't step back into the number. The dead are carried with the care they were arranged with at dawn. Water, guarded like a secret, is poured by order. Runners and messengers first, then hands that shake from breaking, not fear. Wounds are bound with hide and cloth, and Iklwa becomes a splint. Small, exact actions keep victory from leaking into loss. Runners leave with ledgers, not boasts who held, who rotated, when the horns closed, how much time was bought at what cost. In homesteads, ululation and low keening answer each other. Nandi hears the first report as proof the system kept its promises. Makabayi Kajama begins her arithmetic rewards that don't inflate men. Cattle and words sent before Zwide's messengers arrive with a different story. Spoils are counted without greed. Spears gathered for edges, shields repaired or turned into straps. Cattle moved quietly and distributed like medicine feed the mouths you ask to wait. Captives of fighting age are weighed for wit and folded, some into new Amabutho. Boys go to homesteads that need hands. It isn't sentimental, it's the opposite of waste. That night the council audits timing. Where did the chest breathe too fast? Whose whistle ran ahead of a thorn's shadow? Which slope taxed more than expected? Praise goes to clean rotation and a reserve that rose exactly once. Men who broke spacing will be corrected by repetition. Songs are shaped so glory sits on the system, not one man's shoulders. Neighbors feel doors grow lighter on their hinges. Chiefs leaning north step back under a shelter that tastes like order, not fire. At Delagoa Bay, traders notice fewer sick men and better bargaining. Powder as luxury, not crutch. Credit turns toward those who can predict themselves. The immediate prize isn't land. It's time. Days to mend, train, send the right words to the right doors, and turn patience into a weapon. Consequences move first through breath, then borders. After Gqokli, Amabutho don't dissolve. They radiate along known paths and convert allegiance from speech to schedule. Amakonda regimental homesteads stitch the country like neat seams. Schools of timing where boys learn together, veterans import discipline in defenses, herds, and disputes. Culture shifts. Praise now names units that did unglamorous things, cleanly reserves that rose once, horns that closed without a chase. Authority becomes a calendar. Diplomacy follows. Chiefs decide that Shaka's order is cheaper than Zwide's reach. Tributaries fold, some by fear, many by arithmetic, regular levies instead of irregular raids, protection that costs less than insecurity. New Amabutho mix men whose fathers may have traded spears, drill turns neighbors into files that can be relied on. Empire appears not as a line but a network of arrival times. Storage pits, cattle loans, marriage codes, and the habit of showing up where a promise said, "There's a tax." Centralization shortens indecision and negotiation. Songs that overgrow a single man are cut down. Men who crave ornament are corrected until they conform or vanish. Courts harden, gossip narrows. Some remember looser days and call it loss. Others see more sons return and call it a bargain. Beyond, upheaval widens into what later mouths call Mfakane, divided by Diffakane settlements. Crack, peoples move, stories harden into blame. Drought tightens belts. Slave raiders and gun runners bend prices. Old rivalries had already shaken balances. Shaka's efficiency didn't cause the storm. It trimmed his roof so tightly that gusts lifted others. That's not absolution. It's proportion. Legacy walks on method and memory. Method persists under Dingane, Mpande, Setchwayo, reserves like held breath, horns where escape once lived, a chest that refuses drama. At Isandlwana decades later, redcoats meet an old grammar performed by new men. Whatever else that day says, it testifies that a system born to keep a small nation from being decided by others could still decide a larger one's fate. Memory travels differently. In homesteads, Shaka becomes the arrangement invoked for chores done well as much as for raids prepared. Nandi's steadiness and Mkabayi's arithmetic enter proverb. Other tales accrete some too bright, some too dark. The refrain that survives is stubborn. Order preserves life. Inside Shaka's house, tension becomes assassination. Mbofa among those who step from shade. The king dies, the cadence does not. Across South Africa and in the United Kingdom, United States, Nigeria, and Kenya, his name shifts from caricature to study. Not a blood-drunk phantom, but a builder of systems who turned improvisation into policy. Roads beaten by regimented feet become trade routes. Smithies that sharpened Iklwa edges harden hoes. Caches of water become silos of grain. Order, once a weapon, remains a habit. Silence has many authors. Archives favor signatures and seals. Amabutho kept cadence and oaths. One leaves neat trails in locked rooms, the other lives in throats and courtyards. Droughts scattered guardians, wars broke lineages. Paper kept speaking while people who could annotate songs were moving or gone. Caricature is comfortable. Call African order chaos, and even clockwork spears look like noise. Reduce a century's upheavals to one frightening name, Mefakane divided by Diffakane, and other hands are absolved. Drought, coastal markets bidding on people, expensive gunpowder. Myths travel faster than ledgers. Translation erases. Amabutho becomes regiments, losing how homestead and school live inside it. Iklwa becomes Asagai, a label that can't carry the ethics of closeness. Impi becomes horde, letting storytellers treat courage as noise and logistics as luck. Elsewhere, syllabuses prefer Rourke's drift over Isandlwana because metals are easier to grade than admitting redcoats once paid for, underestimating a quiet system. Power inside the house hid things too. Shaka insisted praise be paid to the repeatable. Secrets strengthened Amakanda and taught silence. Later, assassinations taught tongues that detail could be safer as ritual than story. After Shaka, states and markets recruited his name for their own architectures, some righteous, some not, and shrank or inflated him to fit. There is also discomfort. To admit Zulu order was rational and iterative, modern refiles a region under authorship, not backdrop. Maps become negotiations. Treaties are judged against local calendars. Innovation must be spoken with African vowels. Easier to leave Shaka as impulse and omit Shaka as method. And yet the story survives in plain view, in straight fences, in mothers teaching sons that courage keeps appointments, in buried water for a needed march, in arriving where promise is said. It asks for a different literacy cadence as archive, terrain as footnote, logistics as plot, and a palette that prefers the savory of exactness to the sugar of spectacle. What remains is a grammar for turning danger into structure. Precision is cheaper than glory. Gqokli was won by marching, drinking, and rotating on time. Reliability is a blade. Logistics is the stage, not backstage. Water cached in the dark, feet prepared, paths rehearsed, these are the fight. If you demand patience, fund it. Terrain is a partner. Choosing ground chooses tempo. Tempo chooses outcome long before contact. Training is the opposite of superstition. Rehearsal loans muscle memory to courage when fear tries to empty the hands. Reserves are intention, not insurance. Innovation from constraint. The Iklwa enforces accountability, no distance to hide in. Strip what can't be repeated, build what can. Culture is an operating system. Nandi's ledger and Makabayi's arithmetic remind us to reward the repeatable, not the loud. Let pride rest in cadence. Centralization has a tax. Tight systems need designed windows for dissent, or correction arrives sharpened. Memory is a responsibility. Refuse caricature. Read cadence as archive and terrain as footnote. Precision is respect even for opponents like Zwaid Kalanga and the Ndwandwe. Method outlives names. Under Dingane, Mpande, Sechwayo, the grammar endured. Ask whether your work would survive without your name. If so, you hold a legacy, not a brand. Patience is a weapon. Close without vanity, count carefully, distribute cattle like medicine, buy time with exactness. Futures are built in that margin. What you've heard isn't an ending. It's a cadence you can carry. If Shaka Zulu way of turning timing into law and the ledgers of Nandi and the arithmetic of Makabayi Kajama gave you something usable, stay with us. We tell African power stories from the inside out for South Africa and the diaspora in the UK and US, and for our kin in Nigeria and Kenya, with the same discipline the Amabutho gave their steps. Subscribe so you don't miss the next chapter. Precision is a habit we're building together. Tell us what surprised you most: the calendar that fed the spear, the reserve that rose once, the way ground decides breath? Which lesson will you keep? Rotate before you break? Make your appointments with yourself? Choose usefulness over spectacle? Drop it below so others can borrow your clarity? Name the door we open next. Makabayi the Kingmaker. Zwaid Kalanga, whose long reach forced better planning. The day Dingane and Mbofa turned the knife inward. Or Sechwayo, where an old grammar met a new world above a river. Your comment is a vote for the next path our feet will memorize. Share this episode with someone who keeps time, an elder whose story deserves a microphone, a friend who thinks Africa arrives only as noise, a younger cousin who needs a different vocabulary for power. We'll meet you at the next assembly point. Same whistle, same breath. Until then, rotate before you break and keep your appointment. We'll keep time together.